Ladies and gentlemen, we back at it again on the Sports Talk Show. Say what you need to say. This is Gary Chicken Ingram. This Wednesday, April 24th, 2019. Hope everybody's having a great hump day for the weekend. I know everybody is really looking forward to the weekend. I know I am. I will be on that lake fishing again tomorrow, trying to catch some of those crappie fish that everybody always messing with me about on my Facebook page. But tonight, we got a good show again. We're gonna switch it up a little bit. Tonight we're gonna address an issue that is pretty dear to my heart, and it's dealing with kids and sports. And you know, for some odd reason, you know, baseball is in full bloom, and also other sports are in full bloom as well as golf, tennis, and soccer, especially being the summer months and stuff. But tonight we're gonna touch on some topics about kids being in sports, and we do have a caller that called in a couple weeks ago. We have a Mr. Warrick Henry out of Phenix City, Alabama, on the line with us again tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Henry, are you with us?
Hey, yeah, I'm here, Gary. How you doing?
I'm doing great, man. I hope you're doing well. And you know, we're gonna touch a topic tonight. We're only gonna discuss one topic. We usually discuss 2 to 3, but tonight I think this topic is going to be well worth the time and the talk that we're going to have. And the topic tonight is kids in sports. Mr. Henry, do you have any kids that are playing any sports right now?
Oh, no, I don't.
You don't? Oh, okay. But I do remember that you did play some sports back in your day, right?
Yeah, I mean, I played high school, lower little league, high school, college, and baseball, and also have officiated high school baseball and basketball for over 20 years. So
wow,
that's it all.
Okay. Then, well, maybe on one of my next shows, we're gonna have to get you on to talk about some officiating and stuff like that. Cause you say you've been doing it for 20 years.
Over 20 years, yes.
Wow, over 20. So you probably heard a mouthful from parents during your times in games. I bet.
Absolutely. I've pretty much heard it all.
So this is going to fall right in the vein of what we're going to discuss tonight. And we're going to talk about kids in sports today. You know, there are a lot of team sports out there. There's football, there's basketball, and of course there's baseball. But, you know, golf is more of an individual sport. But kids in sports today, you know, being a baseball player, we're gonna pretty much touch on baseball for this entire subject, and we're gonna talk about, you know, what it takes for kids to become major league players at a young age, going through the process, and hopefully getting a chance to play professional baseball and play major league baseball. But what I wanted to do tonight, Mr. Henry, was to get a parent on the line to give our viewers and listeners their point of view, and also I'm gonna give my point of view, because the show is called Say What You Need to Say. We got to keep it clean, but we're gonna both say what we need to say to try to address kids in sports. Now, me being a retired professional baseball player, you know, I started as a kid at 9 years old when I was coming up, and I knew at 9 years old that I wanted to be a major league player. Today, these kids, and I speak to a lot of parents because I do hitting lessons as well. These kids, Mr. Henry, are starting at a very, very young age. I started at 9. What age did you start at, and how did you get into baseball at such a young age?
Well, I also started at the age of 9. It was just, you know, some guys in the neighborhood kind of got me started. Knew nothing about the game of baseball at that age. Didn't even really watch it on TV or anything like that. And so they invited me to come down to the park and sign up for baseball. Didn't know what I was in for.
Right.
And that's kind of how I got started into it. Tried it. Really liked it. Like I said, out of all the sports, I played through the years, whether it be baseball, basketball, football. It's always come back to baseball. So,
right.
Yeah, I started at an early age also, kind of like you did at the age of 9 years old.
Wow. You know, that's pretty weird that we both started at the same age, but going back to what I was mentioning earlier, a lot of these parents, they have their kids starting around, and I'm not misquoting myself, at 3 and 4 years old, they are starting their kids in baseball activities. Now, me myself, I would think that is a little young to be starting. And what I mean by being starting baseball, I'm talking about they got their kids doing private lessons at 4 or 5 years old. And we both just stated that we didn't start playing until we were 9. Myself personally, I think that's kind of young, because if you got a child that's doing something that early, first of all, you got to let them be a kid, let them be a child, and let them grow into what they want to do. Don't get me wrong. I understand what the parents are trying to get at. They want to start their child as soon as possible. But Mr. Henry, do you think that 3, 4, maybe 5, you think that's a little too young to be getting that deep into wanting to learn the craft of baseball?
Absolutely. And not just baseball, just any sport in general.
Right.
Because at that age, the kid has no say-so. So you have to wonder why the parents are doing it. Is it for the kid or for themselves?
Great point.
Chances are, if they started at that age, it's probably for the parent more so than the kid.
Great point.
Yeah.
So,
and
go ahead.
No, because I have friends with kids who are currently or have previously, been in sports. And one thing that I've always talked to my friends about is to put your kids in everything.
Right.
Put your kids in everything. Don't specialize. Kids will they'll find their own level.
Absolutely.
And generally, one sport plays off the other. Whether the soccer, good footwork. You need good footwork in anything you do.
Right.
Concerning whether it's sports everyday life. And so soccer plays into, baseball, basketball. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's all about finding the balance. But I still think that's all about letting the kid find their level, as opposed to a parent pushing them in one direction or the other.
Hey, you touched on a great point, Mr. Henry, where you said let kids get involved in different sports. Now, like myself, I came up playing football, baseball, whatever sport that could keep me out of trouble. And I started at 9 years old, and to this day, I think my mom, I want to thank my mom for putting me in sports, because, sports paved the way for me to be living the life that I'm living now. But you said a mouthful right there. Now, like you said, you mentioned something about some of the parents are in it for themselves and not the child. And that brings me to my next point, where you have two different types of parents when you're involving your young kids into getting involved into these sports. And the two types of parents I'm talking about, number one is the hardcore parent, which is the parent that is constantly 24/7 drilling their child at that young of an age to do what they want them to do, which is baseball. Now, I'm going to give you an example. You have travel ball teams. You have a lot of things going on. You got coach pitch that's going on now, where they actually pitch to the kids at those young age. You have some T-ball, but you got the hardcore parent, and then you also have the other type of parent, which is the easy-going parent, which will probably fit in the bill of what you was talking about, letting their child show them what sport they want to play and everything. Mr. Henry, would you consider yourself a hardcore parent or easygoing parent if you had a child that young getting involved in baseball?
Oh, knowing what I know now and seeing what I've seen through the years, from an officiating standpoint, or just as a player, I would definitely be the type of parent that would put my kid in everything.
Okay.
And like I said, and just let them basically tell you or show you what they want to do. Now, it's true. Sometimes kids really don't know which way they want to go. They love soccer or basketball just as much as they love baseball. or football.
Right.
But generally, I think it's a pretty safe bet that kids will let you know the older they get, the more they'll narrow it down. And you as a parent, from a standpoint, if you're really just observing your kid, you know kind of which way your kid should go as they get older. When I say older, maybe 12, 13.
Right.
You can start to see some, depending on how they develop. Of course, some kids develop later than others.
Absolutely.
But so not everybody develops at the same rate. But you kind of know, as a parent, which way your kid should go. Then it's all right to try to steer them, but still at the same point, not be so hardcore and this is what I want my child to do. This is what I want my child to be. It's not good for the kid.
Well, Mr.
To do it that way.
I understand totally. And Mr. Henry, listeners and viewers, hey, we're not actually getting on you for the type of parent you are. We're just trying to bring this to the forefront that you can either be a hardcore parent or easygoing parent. You got to figure out which works for you and your child. And I'm gonna say this, in reference to this, I'm not sitting here saying don't push your child, don't get them extra work. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying there's a time and a place and an age where, if you start a kid off at 3, 4 years old, 5 years old, hardcore, going at it 24/7, there could be a reason for them to get burned out later. Like Mr. Henry said, at the age of 12 and 13, you should know what sport your child, whether it be your daughter or your son, what sport he's going to choose. But up from 5 to 11, they could easily get burned out, man. And I've seen it. I've heard other parents talking about it. But the one thing that parents want to do, and like I said, I'm a parent myself, is we want to get every avenue we possibly can to our child for them to be able to make it to the next level. But you got to be smart about it. That's the only thing that me and Mr. Henry are talking about. Now, I will say this, in this process with kids in sports, there is going to be failure. Okay, there's going to be failure, and
absolutely.
And I'm going to define failure. The definition of failure is actually the lack of success. Now, the definition of success is the accomplishment of an aim or a purpose. But, I think sometimes some parents doesn't realize what failure can do to kids at a young age. That's why I kind of try to tell people to let their child just get acclimated to playing it without putting too much pressure on them, because failure is actually a roadmap to success. What do you think about parents? And you probably seen it too, Mr. Henry, where some kids are failing at an early age. They failing at T-ball. They're failing, and then you know how kids are. If they get too embarrassed, they're not going to want to do that anymore. What are your thoughts on, kids failing at such a young age in baseball, trying to be able to perfect it and get to the next level?
Well, that's the thing. When you start kids out too young, and they're not understanding that, for instance, as you say, we're talking about basically baseball, that baseball is built on failure.
Absolutely.
If you're better, you can make millions upon millions of dollars failing in baseball.
Absolutely.
In baseball, law of averages say that you're only successful 3 out of 10 times that you come to the plate if you're a batter.
Absolutely.
So that means every time you step into the plate, it's like 9 against 1. So some kids, especially at certain ages, they can't handle failure.
Absolutely. Wow.
And they tend to act out, whether they just get a bad attitude towards the game or other teammates, or just a bad attitude at home in general, because, it's time for baseball. It's time to go to a baseball game, baseball practice, and, they didn't get a couple of hits, the previous game, and mama or dad is, not real happy with them, and putting certain pressures on it. It takes the fun out of the game for the kids. This game's supposed to be fun.
Hey, man. Hey, Mr. Henry, I don't mean to cut you off, but you took the words right out of my mouth. You made one great point to where you said a lot of kids don't know how to deal with failure. And as a parent, if you steadily keep putting that pressure on, all that is going to do is just, anytime it could be a little failure, anytime a little failure happens with that kid, it escalates to something that it didn't have to. And, you know, I got a few points that I want you to address. The first point is, what are some ways that a parent, and parents, I mean, you listen to this because Mr. Henry's only one parent, but, you know, sometimes we can hear something from someone and it can help us, you know, and with the process. Mr. Henry, what are some ways that a parent can address failure with their child, especially at a young age like that?
I didn't hear you, Gary. Can you repeat that question?
What are some ways that a parent can address failure with their child?
Oh, that's easy. It's just letting them know that that's life. And,
right.
You know, and sports,
right.
That's the good thing about sports is it kind of, in certain ways, equates, you know, that in life is the same thing, because not everything that you do in life you're going to be successful at. And it is not failing that's the bad part, because really, if you're not failing at something, or if you don't fail at anything, then are you really learning anything?
Oh my
God! Again, it's not just baseball, but it's life too.
Right.
And so when kids fail, I mean, sometimes you have to accentuate the positives. So you didn't get 3 hits today. You struck out 3 times.
Right.
But you made a really good play on that ground ball.
Gotcha.
So you have to reinforce. You have to put some positive reinforcements in there.
Absolutely.
You know, and sometimes not even address the negative.
Wow, Mr. Henry, that was excellent, man. And listeners and viewers, hey, you know, I've witnessed at some of these games where a parent is in the stands yelling at their child. I witnessed where a parent was behind the dugout, behind the chain link fence, yelling at their child. And that right there is one road that you don't want to go down. And maybe your child is having a bad game. And maybe sometimes parents, maybe you have to look at yourself in the mirror to see if you're putting too much pressure on your child because they're failing. And children, they're delicate kids, especially the age that we're talking about. And I'm speaking of the age 4 up to age 9. Man, I've had some parents come to me and wanted me to give some hitting lessons to their child. And I say, how old is your child? He's 5. And the first thing that I say is, hey, I don't want to just take your money. How about you just let your child just get acclimated and just let them play up until 9, and then I think you should start getting them some individual lessons at 9, maybe 10. I said, because right now they just want to have fun at what they're doing. And some parents, you know, when their child felt like that, they will make the situation worse by putting too much pressure on their child. Now, the second point, Mr. Henry, for the parents, are there any ways that you could help parents cope with their kids failing during that trial?
Well, I mean, again, just what I said just a second ago is to accentuate some of the positive things that they may have done on the field that day, and not just what they didn't do. See, again, knowing and understanding how the game is supposed to be played and what everybody's in the analytics these days. If you really understand, again, like I said, you're supposed to fail 7 out of 10 times.
Right.
Nothing's wrong with that.
Absolutely.
Like I say, you make millions of dollars failing.
Yeah.
There ain't anywhere else in this world, whether it's in business or anywhere else, that for the most part, where you can go and you can have that failure rate and still be considered, quote, successful.
Absolutely.
So, as far as parents are concerned, I mean, again, like you just said, let them have fun.
Right.
Let them have, because there's going to come a time where, they're going to have to be held accountable for, it's not going to be all right that they missed that ball, let the ball go between their legs in the bottom of the 7th inning, But now, at a young age, no, it's all right, because it's about the fact that they're out of the house, they're not in front of the TV playing video games or whatever, they're out moving around, which is a problem these days that we don't kids. I mean, when was the last time you rode down in your subdivision or rode out in the street and saw kids out in the yard playing, whether it's pick up football or just wiffle ball? Absolutely. We don't do that anymore.
Absolutely.
Or very seldom do you see that. And that's just kids just being organic and just enjoying the game for what it is and just having a good time.
Absolutely, Mr. Henry. You know what, man? You on point tonight. Kids in sports, man. And like I said, we're just discussing whether or not, parents are being too hard on their kids too early, or if they even actually letting them get involved in too early. Like I say, hey, parents, you have the right to have your kids out there playing catch, hitting the ball at 3 years old if you like. But we're just discussing some of the successes and failures that could come from that. And, failure is a roadmap to success because, like you said earlier, you have to fail to succeed. Michael Jordan has been quoted to say he failed numerous times, but he still kept taking that shot. Now, just think if a great, the GOAT of the NBA said something like that. Now, you know what? He obviously knows the difference and knows what failure is going to do to him. Failure makes you learn from your mistakes. When you're not learning from your mistakes, something's wrong. And like you said, in baseball, that is the only sport in professional sports where you could fail 7 out of 10 times and be a millionaire or a successful hitter. In basketball, if you shoot 10 times, you miss 7 shots, you're probably going to be on the bench the next few weeks.
No, you won't be in the league.
Absolutely. In football, if you miss 7 out of 10 field goals as a kicker on game-winning field goals, you probably going to be what, Mr. Henry?
Out of the league.
There you go. and it goes to every sport. So parents, and I know one thing that parents do really harp on is their child and their hitting. Now, me being a hitting guy, that's the one thing that they really put a lot of structure on, put a lot of stress on. They want their child to be the best hitter on the field. But parents, you got to understand, you can fail 7 out of 10 times as a hitter and be successful. That usually doesn't happen that way, but that's just another thought that a parent can think about, when they're dealing with their kids and all in baseball. But you know what, Mr. Henry, we touched on some great points tonight, and I really feel that this is going to be a great show for listeners and parents to listen to, because try not to be so hard on your kid, especially at that younger age. Let them get acclimated to having fun with something, because as we all know, as a child, if it's something that we don't want to do, we're not going to do it later as a child. And a lot of times this can be misconstrued as, well, you don't want my kid to get better. You don't. We're not saying that, viewers and listeners. What we're saying is just, step back a little bit, try to have a little bit more easygoing approach. And also, during this time of success and failure at that young age, to me, timing is the key. Because like you said, Mr. Henry made a great point. He said, don't harp on all the negative things all the time with your child. Harp on some of the positives and try to keep an equal balance, because what that's going to do for your child, that's going to make your child feel like you really care, that they're getting better. Even if they're not doing so well, they're going to care that they're not going to be scared of you when you open your mouth, because I've seen that happen on numerous occasions. Well, Mr. Henry, is there anything that you would like to leave the viewers and listeners with about the discussion of kids in sports before we get off the air?
Really, again, back to what we were saying initially, put your kids in other sports.
Right.
Like I said, parents I'm saying parents because it ain't the kids, are quote, specializing in certain sports these days, especially baseball. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm in Braves country, so we all know Chipper Jones. Chipper Jones is the one draft choice of the Braves,
right?
Hall of Famer. And when he was drafted by the Braves, one of the things that they said the reason why they took him number one was because he was an quote athlete. In other words, he played more than one sport. They said they wouldn't have drafted him had he just played baseball.
Great point.
Because all this stuff, all the other sports, it all translates. One sport helps the other.
Right.
So if anything else, I would say as a parent, introduce your kids to as many activities as you can.
Absolutely.
And that they, at the end of the day, they'll find their own way. But just exposing them to more than one sport and not let's quote specialize, because just specializing is to me it's not good.
Mr. Henry,
it's not good. You're throwing all your eggs in one basket.
I understand. Mr. Henry, you said a mouthful, man. Hey, you was right on point again. And ladies and gentlemen, listeners and viewers, take that advice that Mr. Warrick Henry out of Phenix City, Alabama just gave you. Put your kids in multiple sports, man, because like I said, if you got a kid in one sport 24/7, that can eventually burn them out. And today's society, they love playing those video games 24/7. How about getting them on that football field, that baseball field, that basketball court, or the soccer field, whatever floats your boat? And don't get us wrong. We want your kid to be the best baseball player they can be, but have a little compassion out there for your child when you got them out there making some mistakes, because guess what? No athlete is perfect. None of us are perfect. And Mr. Henry, we really do appreciate you giving us your insight on the kids and sports topic tonight. Thank you, sir, for being on the show. Hope you have a great weekend.
All right, Gary. Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, Wednesday, April 24th, 2019, Sports Talk Show. Say what you need to say. Hey, we just hit on one topic tonight. This is a topic that has been buzzing around in my head for about a week, and I thought it was a great time to have a parent on and to discuss kids in sports. We talked about, kids starting really young, especially the sport of baseball is what we targeted to tonight. Kids are kids. That's what they are. 3, 4, 5, 6 years old. Just let them get out there, have a little fun, get acclimated to the sport, and you never know. Later on, around the age of 9, 10, 11, that kid might be tapping on your door every night. Dad, Mom, let's go play some baseball. But just be careful at how much pressure you put on it, because remember, this game is a game based on failure, but it has the best ratio of failure to success rate, which, like I said, as a hitter, you could fail 7 out of 10 times and be a millionaire playing for a major league ball club in the major leagues one day. And again, like I said, this is Gary Chicken Ingram signing out from you tonight out of lovely Atlanta, Georgia. We will see you next week. Have a good one, people.